to The Art of Hobbiness. I'm Erin, and as always, joined by my lovely co-host, Tam.
Yes!
Today we're exploring a topic that's very close to our hearts. We're diving in how to raise kids who love hobbies.
Yes.
And how it can benefit them in so many ways, from building their confidence and creativity to helping them manage stress and anxiety. So let's jump in. I know we have a lot to talk about since we both have little kids.
We
and
do.
have seen this firsthand on how hobbies have changed like our relationship with them and, you know, their creativity. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for those who followed along through this whole podcast season, they know that in the beginning stages of us kind of doing this, my initial tactic for trying to encourage my kids to do hobbies was I just would use the word hobby more often. And like anytime they would do anything, I'd be like, that's a great hobby.
Yeah.
To the point where my kids were like, we get it.
Yeah.
Could you stop saying that? So that was my first tactic that was kind of a dud. Didn't really quite work.
Yeah.
So I switched gears into kind of just trying to make sure that when I was going to go do a hobby, like I would kind of announce that I was going to do hobby time. Or if the kids were just going to, like, we're kind of in the midst of something, I'd be like, what a great use of hobby time. You know, like I just tried to show more that like what we were doing was embracing that hobby culture.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that what we've taken away from that is that modeling as a parent is like, I mean, we all know that our kids are watching us all the time, whether they're learning from us all the time, whether we think they're not, and listening.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think what you're basically saying is you don't need to tell your kids like, hey, you need to have hobbies or you need to spend hobby time. Like leading by example is so much more powerful, right? Like seeing them, you just like, I've taken a little different approach. I didn't kind of like talk about the hobbies. I just started doing more things in my house and didn't really like tell them what I was doing. I just kind of started doing it and they're like, oh, Mom, what are you doing? Can I help? You know, and like the pasta making was a really big one in our household.
That one was great.
Like when I started cranking out that pasta, they wanted to jump right in, you know, and now like we've been making pasta a ton and they want to help, which is so cool.
That is really awesome.
You know, I think it's so inspiring to them. So like modeling as a parent, like if you're into it and you're showing that it brings joy to you for your kids, then they naturally like, they're like, oh, they just see, then they start to see the value in that too, right?
Yeah.
It's not all about work and being stressed or whatever. It's, you know, fun too.
Well, yeah, because if I self-reflect on like my initial tactic of like trying to like be like, go do hobby or this is a hobby that you're doing, I feel like I was coming off as more like a boss as opposed to a guide. Right. And so like forcing this on them was not the way to go. It was very much like learn by example, because then like you said, like the kids kind of come up, they ask questions and it kind of inspires them a little bit. And kids, I just feel like are just naturally creative.
Absolutely.
Creatures.
They are born that way.
Right. They just can't help it. Like, it's
you think about like a baby, like, so gosh, I think about this a lot, like how kids, and our kids go to like Montessori school right now, so it's like a big topic, I feel like, at that school too, so it's kind of something that's just on the front of our mind, but how kids, like, they're born curious, they're born creative, and like we kind of squash that as they get older.
Why do we do that,
like,
though?
and that's what happens with people. I don't know, it's terrible, right? But you think about how like a kid, like a toddler, they're into everything, and they want to just touch everything and like mess up everything, because that's how they learn, right? And then as they get older, we tell them, don't do that. Don't make that mess. Stop doing that. Like, you know, and it's slowly over time, like squashes their,
oh my gosh,
Erin, you know, freedom and creativity.
Yes.
Whereas kind of letting them explore in a safe way, whether through hobbies or at your home or however, you know, how it will continue to let that creativity and confidence grow.
You're so right. In fact, if I'm sitting here self-reflecting some more, so after the holidays, and, you know, we get all the holiday stuff back into our closet. I was cleaning up hobby supplies and trying to organize them. And, you know, I was kind of noticing that I am like, why do we squash them? I learned, I think even though I'm in this hobby like journey, I actually think I was one of the bigger squashers of my kids doing hobbies. And here's why. So it came down to what medium they wanted to use. So like if they wanted to just color, great. Like I've got colors sitting everywhere. Coloring books, they could just pick it up and clean, right? But if the kids wanted to get into something that was a little bit more, I'm going to say chaotic for lack of better words, but like painting.
Right.
So like that required so much work from me first, because I first needed to get like a blanket out onto the table so that like they wouldn't ruin my table, right? And then I needed to get the supplies out, and then I needed to organize it, and then I needed to control it because I didn't want them to create, in my mind, a mess that I feel wouldn't be attractive if we had anybody come. Well, then what kid is going to want to do that if I come in with it with such an attitude, right?
And I think that is like all across the board in society, that is the message we give kids, is like if it's difficult for the adults, which, I mean, there's a time and place for some of those things. Sure. But all those little interactions where they're like, the kids start to feel like it's not worth doing, right?
Yeah, or they just feel like they're going to upset mom because mom's going to have to clean. And like, because I know I wasn't like quiet about me cleaning up this mess, right? And it's not like my kids can't clean up a mess, like they can, but it was a situation of where I was kind of like, well, they weren't cleaning it to my standard. Right. So then I had this idea, because I, had like was finding this frustration, and I was feeling bad about like having such a control over when my kids could do a certain particular medium, right? And that I was holding them back from it. So I ended up putting this table, like this beat up table that we've had for years, in the basement. And then I put like all of the supplies that they could possibly need for any of their things, painting, Play-Doh, Legos, like all the stuff that would like create like a chaotic mess. Yeah. And I put it in a spot in our basement that I truly don't care what happens to it. Yeah. And I suddenly found myself being like,
it's fine.
I don't care. Yeah. Like now when they get the paint out, it's like I don't have to do all this extra legwork to set up a paint section for them to paint. Like they can just get it out and play with it. And then I kind of just let that space ride all day long. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, guys, we're all going to clean this up. Yep. But I don't have this level of like, it has to be so precise cleaned. Yep. Because
you don't care about that space as much.
I don't care about that space. Yeah. I don't care. Like, it's not the expensive table upstairs that I'm worried about, having paint that stains it, or the Sharpie that's like now permanently a part of
the Sharpies. Oh my gosh.
My kids love the Sharpies.
Banned from the house.
Right?
No, that's such a great idea. I think I don't have that in my house, but I feel like I do need something like that, because I still suffer from that a little bit, and we've gotten a lot more relaxed. I'm just like, I'm just not gonna have anything nice until they're like 10, but and that's a great idea, a great tip to like create like a safe space for kids where they can truly just explore, and there's no like, you're not having to come in to tell them no.
Yeah, because I didn't feel good about it. Like I felt, because like I do feel like, paint, what if painting is like the medium that my kid is like just takes off and turns to the next, Van Gogh. Well, I just held back my kid from that because I just didn't want to have to clean it up that day, right? Yeah. So like I just now that like my kids have that space, like when they want to do something, they just go, they do it, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, now it's time to clean up all of this space, and it's usually freaking chaotic mess down there. Aaron. Like I mean,
are they pretty good about helping clean it up?
Oh yeah. I mean, it takes a little while to clean up, because then they're like, oh, wait, I want to play with this now. Right. And like, oh, wait, I want to play with this again because it's still out. And like, you have to be careful with certain types of stuff, because like paints will dry out. So I do kind of take a peek, after like a hobby, like I see them kind of go down the basement and do something, just to make sure that there's nothing that could be like expirable or got too out of hand. Sure. But the mentality that I have going towards that is far less stressing than me having to go through the whole project management of prepping the room for them just to do a 10-minute craft.
And like you think about, the benefit of letting them have their space as theirs, that they're free to explore whatever they want. No grown-up is telling them what to do or how to do it. Right? Like that has got to be so good for their confidence and self-esteem to just like be able to pick whatever they want, and they can just go with it, and nobody's judging them, nobody's over their shoulder. Like, have you ever had this like memory of observing like a parent with their kid coloring, they're like, no, you're not doing it right, you're not coloring in the lines,
Yes.
And like I'm just like cringing, like let them do it, like let them color outside the lines. I just think about that, like if they have a safe space where they can just go, I mean, they're gonna learn so much better and be more creative and like confident in their, I guess,
and themselves.
What makes them happy,
Yeah. Like I have to imagine it builds like a level of independence too, because like I feel like the kids know how to kind of get the supplies out themselves. Yeah. Like you said, they're not getting anybody like over their shoulder kind of criticizing them. So I feel like that's building like some independence,
right? Yeah.
And then having that opportunity to be creative could build skill sets that, like I said, maybe your kid could be creative in like a professional setting because they've been around it their whole life. It's been accessible to them. There's nothing that's held them back from it. right? Like they just get to do it.
Right.
And like I have to imagine, I personally see, and I don't know if you've seen this, but like sometimes I see my kids kind of go towards hobby creativity time when they're feeling like really emotional.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even I was talking about how like in a recent hobby that like it was kind of therapeutic.
Yeah.
A kid can have that
Absolutely.
too, right?
I mean,
like,
it can be a huge stress relief, like to just be able to zone out and do something that brings you joy. It's a huge stress relief, and like, yeah, it's like almost meditative, right? Like we all know the benefits of meditation.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a hot topic, right?
Oh
and
yeah.
Just getting that time to just decompress. Yeah, that's huge. Definitely kids can benefit from that. I mean, the world is like probably so much more stressful than we were kids, right?
My gosh.
It's like, oh my gosh. So they need it more than we did, probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and then you can also think about like, just in like reflecting on our experience with hobbies, like we've learned to fight perfectionism through them, right?
Right.
And, so you have two boys, I have two girls, and we talk about how little girls, like we really kind of, we were little girls once that were raised to be very studious, and like creativity was almost kind of squashed and discouraged because that wasn't going to get us to college, all right, or wasn't going to get us to be like the doctor that they wanted us to be. And I feel like in having that time to be able to just be with hobbies, like kids being creative, they're going to experience failing at a project, but then they can kind of overcome that. And I feel like that can kind of repetitively give them practice at failing something 100%. And picking yourself up and move on.
Absolutely.
Right?
I saw that firsthand when my 5-year-old started doing Lego, those big Lego sets.
Oh yeah.
And like,
I bet that was challenging at first.
Yeah, and when he just started with something where actually I thought, maybe more than he could handle, but like I showed him how the book works, and like with the Lego book, the instructions, and like I helped him with the first probably half of one, and he would get frustrated, but he like pulled himself back because he really wanted to build
this
kit. We had bought him it was a monster truck, and he's really into those.
I love it.
And so I think he really wanted the end product, right?
Yeah.
And I think that helped motivate him, but he just seeing his little brain switch and persevere through that frustration, like if you do that over and over again, that practice will help you in life to be more resilient.
Which is so interesting because like you think as a parent that and I think as a parent that sometimes I feel like if I don't specifically say, this is how you overcome this, then my kids don't learn it, right? Like I almost feel like I have to dictate word for word life lessons, otherwise they won't learn it. And that's not true.
I was just gonna say I don't think that's true at all.
It's true.
They learn so much more by their own experiences and by our modeling of those experiences, how we handle frustration, how we handle stress. And I think by us modeling, taking time for ourselves, prioritizing ourselves, like they're gonna value that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. But again, I really don't think that, I think prior to us going on this hobby adventure that we've gone on, I really do feel like I still believe that up until prior to this last year, that like I had to dictate life lessons.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's been an evolving process
for everybody,
sure.
right? Yes. And so like I feel like, but I watch my daughters and you watch your sons see a project fail.
Yes.
They want to get to the end product. Like that's got to teach like determination. Yeah. It's going to teach self-esteem because like think about how good they're going to feel after they accomplish that.
Definitely.
Think about how good you feel.
Yeah.
Think about how good I felt after my last hobby. I'm so excited about it.
Satisfying. It's so satisfying.
Absolutely. And there's the value of a hobby, it's just so hard to find a negative. I really don't know that I've discovered a negative thus far on being creative and exploring. And I really think starting at a young age and supporting your child at a young age, like there are going to be people who are going to continue to grow and develop these hobbies.
Yes.
And I think having hobbies that being experienced in having hobbies, I think will benefit you later in life and prevent you from picking up, I'm going to say like bad habits.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely think that's true. Like it'll help you have good habits, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I think it helps you not lose yourself as you become an adult.
What a great point.
Like,
yes.
It helps you maintain
who you are.
Like who you are and what you like to do.
Develop.
And find, life, like as you become an adult, we know it's not all roses.
No, not at all.
And, as we've both experienced, like having things that bring us joy outside of the normal, like, life stuff really makes just life more enjoyable all around, right? And
yeah.
Yeah.
And it helps you build community too. Like, like for instance, like we talked about how as adults, like we felt like it was really hard to make friends.
Yes.
And we're like, I don't even know how to do it. But as we've continued to go through hobbies, we're actually finding that having a hobby that you can like talk about with somebody or maybe even bond with somebody for is like the easiest way to make friends.
Yeah, it's so true.
If our kids like practice these hobbies, they meet people who maybe they join a sport, right? That's a hobby.
Right.
They join that sport. They meet like-minded people who have that same kind of goal. It builds teamwork skills. Right. It builds community. It builds connection. Yeah. Like and then as you continue to grow older, you have those skills of how to make friends via hobbies. Yeah. You continue to implement that and improve upon that. It's probably why like our husbands have no issues having all of these friends because they've been doing this from day one.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good point. I hadn't really made that connection, but I think you're right. And so now, there's so many things, so many benefits for adults and kids. You know, it's like for adults, we're relearning how to prioritize this self-care hobby time. Yeah. And for our kids, we just want to like promote that they maintain it and they build that skill at an early age so that they don't have to go through the struggle of like finding themselves, you know, again. Yeah. So,
and I think like having hobbies that they can kind of do by themselves without you there managing, letting them explore that on their own, I think gives them that independence to practice on those skills individually and gives them that time to kind of learn from that. And then that world of that I thought where you had to dictate, you know, life lessons in order for them to learn that, it's not there. No. Which I think only further builds like the child's opportunity to, like you said, just learn who they are, what they like, and be confident in the skills that they have. Definitely. Without an adult, you know, who, you know, your parents are going to be like your biggest influence then, right? Like, who am I to say that they can't paint right now? Yeah. Like, where did I get that audacity?
Yeah, I know. In like trying not to force them into certain things, you know, like my 5-year-old, he has never liked crafting and like the typical little kid, like that crafting, painting, drawing, coloring thing. Never. He's never liked it. He's very like active, high energy, like he loves building things. Like that is his thing. Loves blocks and building and Legos and, you know, Magnetiles, all those things. Like he would love to build a huge thing and then crush it. Like that's his thing, you know? And I feel like for a while I kept being like, let's color, let's paint, but he just never into it. And so I kind of just gave up on that. And now his brother, and I've never promoted it for him. He just was like, that's what he picks at school is painting. Wow. You know, because they get to pick like what they want to do at school. And when he's at home, like he wants to he'll sit down and color and paint. Like
that's so wild. They're so kind of different in their realms.
And so I think like just seeing that's just the way their brains were born. Like that's how they are. It's helped me too to realize like I shouldn't put my filters on them. Right. Like, you know, like not all kids need to be into coloring. Right. That's not.
You're so right.
So anyway, just a side note of like.
What a great observation.
You know, just not being that parent boss of what their hobbies are going to be. Yeah. You know, let them be themselves. So,
yeah. I think it, if I could recommend anything, I would say to any of our listeners, I would find a space in your house where you just have like
That's a great tip.
Go to like, you know, a yard sale and find an old table or something and just put it up in a corner in the basement and then put surround that little table with all your hobby
materials,
stuff. Yeah. Because I even find like Pat hangs out in that space now. Yeah. Like he's down there playing games and like working on things. It's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you've got me thinking for sure. I'm like, okay, just not even just a hobby table, but even just a space.
Just a space.
That I don't care what they do. Like, I'll be like, when you're 10, we'll repaint and we'll recarpet.
Exactly. We will rebuild.
Or whenever you're however old, you know.
Right.
That's I think that's such a great tip to give them just a safe space so where you don't have to say no, where you don't have to control anything. They can just totally,
takes the stressor out of your life too, because you're not trying to manage and then you're not like, oh God, now I got to clean this again, or it's got to stay precisely clean because you don't want that table.
Yeah, because they pick up on that stress.
They do.
From, you know, so
they're intuitive little things.
So I think, it's such a great topic. I think we both feel very passionate about it.
Oh, absolutely. So and I would say most of the moms that listen to this would probably all agree that they feel the same way.
So I don't know. I think hopefully this resonates with our listeners and we would love to connect with other moms who are, you know, feeling the same or have thoughts on this topic. Yeah. Because it definitely hits close to home. So,
well, and if you have any tips of like things that you've done in your home that have helped create like a space where your kids just naturally can go to hobbies without any limitations, share them because I would love more.
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed. Yeah, because that's how we learn, right?
Yeah, that's how we
collaboration.
Yeah, that's right. And listen.
Well, thank you for joining us today on The Art of Hobbiness. We hope you enjoyed this topic. We'd love to connect with you on social media. We're on Threads, Instagram. Leave us a review. We just love to chat.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Hobbiness. Be sure to leave a review and rating. And for a little extra Erin and Tam fun, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Pinterest for behind-the-scenes footage of our journey to find hobbiness.